Rain. Tsunamis. Earthquakes. Lightning. Drought. Volcanoes. Floods. Hurricanes. It seems that no matter how advanced we become as a society, we are still playthings for nature. What if there was a way to not only control the weather, but create something from nothing, to become godlike and ascend beyond the scope of all that is considered normal? The ancient Taoists believed this was possible. At the end of the Han Dynasty, the historical novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms tells the story of Zhuge Liang, the great Shu Han Prime Minister who ascended the altar of the Seven Stars to change the direction of the wind so that a fire attack would be successful. Kongming did indeed change the winds, but how was this possible? Legends tell of a special robe capable of incredible feats such as controlling the weather and manipulating time and space. Once robed, the sorcerer can call forth the wind and the rain, create hailstones, change the seasons at will. One can even summon freak weather such as acid and blood rain. It was last used on record almost 2,000 years ago. It is considered to be the most powerful occult robe in history. But the sands of time had buried its great name, and for centuries its power and design lay dormant. And now I have resurrected this ancient power, to do what it once did long ago, to realize its purpose of Taoist weather magic. Join me as we explore the laws and rules of this robe, and ultimately test its might in a ritual. Robes have always had their place in ceremonial magic. All across the world in all different countries and cultures, the ritual robe is ever present throughout history. It is only in the modern day that this powerful and sacred garment has fallen out of favour. Robes work by creating a bridge between two very different worlds within the magician. They transform the individual from being a regular everyday person who has an occupation, a title, a mundane life, to an all-powerful sorcerer who walks in between the worlds, communicates with deities and immortals. This distinction is of the highest importance within my magic. The contrast between the mundane and the magical, the separation between man and God. Everything comes together when the magician is properly clothed. All magic is enhanced when robes are involved. It does not matter who you are in society, what position you have, what your race is or what your social class is. Once robed, you are equal in the eyes of the spirits. A robe transforms two things, both body and mind. The fabric purifies the body, which in turn purifies the mind, removing the concept of the ego. Once robed, the magician forgets all about his or her human experience on this earth, and instead becomes divine, celestial, heavenly, and transcendent, transforming into the best version of themselves. Robes also allow the magician to plug into the ancient traditions of the old world. When robed, one feels connected to all of the other sorcerers who have come before. It is a way of becoming a part of something greater and bigger than yourself, a way of paying respect to the old ways. Despite what some may think, a real ritual robe is not a costume or a garment for role-playing. It is a sacred wearable talisman that has the potential to be very dangerous in the wrong hands. This is especially true within the tradition of Taoist weather magic. A weather magician's robe contains power that is so volatile and potent that if misused, it could result in devastation and disaster. This is why the following laws exist to maintain a degree of order. These laws must never be broken. They consist of the law of colour, the law of divine embroidery, the law of ethereal entanglement, the law of containment, and the law of necessity. Only after having a deep understanding of these laws can the magician wear the robe and practice magic safely. The law of colour dictates that the weather magician's robe should be black. The sorcerers themselves were an elite class of priests, both respected and feared. In order to tell them apart from regular Taoist magicians, it was decided that weathermancers would wear black robes instead of the colourful and vivid robes that most people are aware of. The law of colour has its roots in sympathetic magic. Weathermancers believe that black robes help to manifest dark stormy clouds and bring forth rainfall. Therefore, when practicing weather magic, black robes are used to create great change in the heavens above. The Law of Divine Embroidery deals with the embellishments and finer details on the robe. A weather magician's outer robe usually has the symbolism of the crane and the phoenix or some form of bird, as birds are used to call forth rain and wind. A lot of modern day magical thinking centers around the magician's own belief system, that if you believe magic is real, it will manifest. The Law of Divine Embroidery does not work this way. Within this tradition, the symbols themselves hold immense spiritual power and they continue to work regardless of whether you believe in them or not. Nothing is ever decorative on a robe. Nothing is there to simply look good. Every single stitch and symbol is there for a purpose and a reason. The symbol of the dragon or the symbol of a bird is considered to be a living entity. So for example, this dragon here is living and breathing and will assist the magician like a spiritual companion. The Law of Divine Embroidery states that all magical embroidery works like food talismans. They each have a life of their own. The Law of Ethereal Entanglement is a personal law that deals with the magician's own spiritual connection to his or her robe. It is well known that a magical robe is at its weakest when it is brand new. It is only after several rituals that the robe itself awakens out of its slumber. This is because it feeds off of the magician's energy field and sustains itself. The partnership between sorcerer and robe is so essential that weather magic cannot be practiced safely without it. The robe is further nourished energetically by all the various gods, immortals and spirits that the magician works with. When the magician opens his or her arms, revealing the entire robe in all its glory, it is believed that entities are drawn to it like moths to a flame. This magnetic energy attracts higher dimensional beings, who then continue to live in the robe permanently until the magician chooses to cast them away. As they inhabit the robe, they also inhabit the body. It is believed that when these entities inhabit the robe, they breathe, and as they breathe, their breath creates a certain smell that is absorbed by the robe. It is very hard to describe this scent, but to me it smells like rainwater during a thunderstorm mixed with sweet mountain grass. The Law of Containment involves the proper care and storage for the robes. Ritual clothing is never mixed with regular clothing. The two should always be separate at all times. The magician is advised to always keep the robe stored away inside a special wooden chest. The chest should be placed in the southeastern corner of the house or temple. The robe should never be handled without washing one's hands in holy water first, and should never be worn without taking a ritual bath of purification. Robes must always be kept clean, neat and tidy. If the magician does not keep the robe clean, keep the chest stored in the correct corner, or does not bother to take a bath of purification, the spirits and gods living inside of the robe may rebel against the magician and bring forth punishments. The Law of Necessity. This law is purely for the safety of the magician. It states that under any circumstances, the sorcerer can only use the robe when it is absolutely essential. This is not an outfit that you can wear for any other purpose but magic and rituals. If the magician wears the robe for any other reason, it could have serious effects on his or her health. The reason for this law is simple and straightforward. Because the robe itself is so potent, If the magician isn't properly purified or prepared for weather magic, the robe itself can drive the magician insane. Therefore, its use is only permitted when it is necessary. Within the tradition of Taoist weather magic, there are 4 main robes that are used in the practice. The robe of the immortal crane, the great robe of the red vermilion bird, the authority over heaven and earth robe, and lastly, the most powerful of them all, the robe of divine thunder. The robe of the immortal crane is a robe that has its roots in healing magic, but Taoists have discovered its true talent lies in weather manipulation. It enables the practitioner to work with any of the celestial mortals such as Zhongli Chuan, Lu Dongbin and Zhangguo Lao, and so on. This robe holds the symbol of the red crown crane, which in Taoism is a symbol of longevity, immortality, and living a long life. The grey border that travels across the outer robe is a representation of the middle path, otherwise known as grey magic. It is especially useful in calling forth rain. The great robe of the red vermilion bird is similar in shape to another Taoist robe called the robe of descent. This one is entirely bespoke and custom made exclusively for weather magic. It is the only one of its kind in the world, and I had it created to aid me with long distance weather spells. This garment draws the majority of its power from the red vermilion bird of the south, one of the 4 celestial animals of feng shui. It represents fire, all feathered creatures, the southern direction, the color red, the season of summer, and the Li triagram meaning flame. Within feng shui, it is associated with fame, reputation, and good fortune. In Taoist alchemy, the bird represents a person's shen, in other words, their magical spirit. The bird also represents 7 celestial mansions, which consist of the following: well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wings, and chariot. Whilst wearing the robe, star lords can be petitioned. In Taoism, it is believed that certain stars control different aspects of the weather, therefore making this a very sacred robe. The authority over heaven and earth robe is similar to the famous senior master's robe. It is easily distinguishable with its strong square shape. Just like the Jiangyi robe, its silhouette is striking. It is a sleeveless garment made entirely from one piece of fabric. It represents the 4 earthly directions and having command over all areas of the earth. Some variations will include 3 small silk straps that tie the robe together. These 3 straps represent the 3 dantians, upper, middle, and lower. They also represent the 3 realms of earth, heaven, and the underworld, and the 3 Taoist treasures, Qi, Jing, and Shen. It contains immense power and is very useful for long-distance weather magic. A few years ago, I attempted to bring rain to Yemen to help with the starvation problems from drought. Initially, I had some success, but I had to stop for the sake of my own health. The practice was draining me of Qi. And the final robe, the most powerful in history, capable of the most potent weather magic, the robe of divine thunder. In order to properly understand this mighty robe, we must first go back in time to the winter of 208 to 209 AD, about 12 years prior to the Three Kingdoms period, known as the Battle of Red Cliffs, sometimes referred to as the largest naval battle in history. It was a naval battle fought between the allies of Sun Quan, Liu Bei and Liu Qi against the mighty forces led by Cao Cao. Cao Cao himself claimed he had 800,000 men, whilst Zhou Yu, courtesy named Gong Jin, estimated that he most likely had 220,000 to 240,000. Regardless, Cao Cao had the numbers advantage as the allies only had 50,000 troops. They knew that in order to be victorious, they needed a cunning strategy. In the historical novel, Zhou Yu and the great Zhuge Liang, courtesy named Kong Ming, both came up with a cunning scheme by writing on their palms with ink. They both shared the same strategy. A fire attack was to be used on Wei's fleet of ships. Since the Wei soldiers were not accustomed to naval warfare, the crew made the fatal decision to link the ships together to prevent seasickness. This would turn out to be a major mistake as the fire would travel from ship to ship, devastating the Cao fleet. Everything seemed to be coming together nicely. The fire attack unit led by Huang Gai was ready and waiting. However, at the last minute, Zhou Yu had foolishly forgotten to consider the direction of the wind, which during winter only blew from the northwest. In order for the fire attack to be successful, the winds would need to be blowing from the southeast, otherwise the flames would destroy the allied ships. Upon realizing this, Zhou Yu fell ill from worry and was in a state of severe anxiety. Everything was now in jeopardy and it appeared that the war was lost. Lu Su, courteously named Zijing, rushes to tell Kongming about this disaster, who says, "I can cure him." So the two go off to see Zhou Yu, who is laid out in bed. Kongming asks him how he is feeling and he tells him that his heart is in pain and he feels faint. Asked if he has taken any medicine, he says he cannot get any down due to nausea. Kongming responds, "I have missed you in the last few days. Why have you fallen ill?" Zhou Yu says, "Unexpected fortune or lack of fortune can come upon us at any time. Indeed, no one can be safe." Smiling, Kongming replies, "And what of sudden winds from heaven? Indeed, no one can predict." Kongming asks, "Are you feeling deeply troubled? Does it feel as if your heart is heavy with anxieties?" Zhou Yu manages to gasp, "Yes." "Then you need something cool to get rid of this. Clearly your qi is out of balance, and once we balance it, you'll be fine." Zhou Yu knows that Kongming is talking in riddles, so he asks, "What do you recommend?" To which Kongming asks for pen and paper and writes something down. It reads, "To defeat Cao Cao, fire is our best solution. But what can we do if the wind does not blow from the east?" Zhou Yu is astonished and fearful of Kongming's great perception. He says, "So you know what troubles me. What remedy can you offer, and quickly too?" "I've little in the way of skills," says Kongming, "but I did learn from some magic books on how to command the winds and call down rain. If we're going to need a southeasterly wind, I'll need a special altar built. The Altar of the Seven Stars, and this must be built on Nanping Mountain, 9 feet high with 3 levels and surrounded by 120 men carrying banners. With this, I should be able to create a wind that will blow for 3 days and 3 nights. Will that do?" Zhou Yu agrees that this will more than do, but it must happen quickly. He then rises, his sickness suddenly cured, and orders that Kongming be supplied with whatever he needs. Kongming travels with his workforce of 500 men and 120 banner carriers. He selects a site with the best feng shui and has red earth brought. Quickly the altar rises, 240 feet in circumference, 9 feet high, with each level being 3 feet high. The symbols of the 28 constellations are placed on the lowest level. To the east, the symbol of the green dragon. To the north, the symbol of the black turtle. To the west, the symbol of the white tiger. And to the south, the symbol of the red vermilion bird. On the second level of the altar, he has the symbols of the 64 hexagrams, while on the top level he places 4 men in Taoist robes. One of them holds a pole with feathers on it to detect the wind direction. One holds a pole with a belt with the symbols of the 7 stars, again to detect the direction of the wind. The third man holds a sword, and the fourth man holds an incense burner. When all is ready, Kongming fasts, bathes, and then mounts the altar barefoot with his hair loose and falling upon his shoulders. From there he lights the incense, sprinkles water and prays silently. There he goes and rests. 3 times he does this. It is at the time of the 3rd watch in the night that the wind begins to blow. Within minutes a full-scale southeasterly wind is blowing. Zhou Yu reacts with another bout of paranoia, saying, "Kongming is clearly in league with dark powers, with ghosts and evil spirits. If he is able to do this," he says, "he is a threat to us all. He shouldn't be allowed to live." So Zhou Yu sends 2 of his officers to Nanping Mountain to behead Kongming, but by the time they arrive, he has already escaped by boat. Due to Kongming's weather magic, the fire attack was a success, and victory was achieved. Now that we have explored the history and mythology of this robe, we can reveal its true secrets. There are 4 main components to a weather magician's robe: the weathermancer's belt, called the Belt of Lightning, the weathermancer's headdress, called the Lotus Crown, the weathermancer's underrobe, called the Robe of Simplicity, and finally the most important part of the whole outfit, the outer robe itself, the Robe of Divine Thunder. The Belt of Lightning helps call forth storms and directly relates to Dian Mu, the Mother of Lightning. It enables the magician to maintain large amounts of qi in the torso of the body so it does not fade away or dissipate into the lower limbs. The lotus crown has two different styles. One is an older, more ancient style, and the other is slightly more modern. Regardless of the difference, the use is still the same. It works like a spiritual antenna, drawing qi from grass, trees, rocks, rivers, vegetation, and the natural world. As qi is drawn through the crown, it is purified by the talismanic nature of the crown. It converts regular qi into godly qi, otherwise known as shen. It enters at the top of the head and travels down the spine of the sorcerer, and this nourishes the mind and body. The Robe of Simplicity is the base robe that is used for all kinds of weather magic. It is a garment made to reflect energy and reflect all wavelengths of both light and qi. As they are reflected, the sorcerer is kept safe from absorbing any toxic qi that might be in the area. It also helps the practitioner from overdosing on qi, as this is a real and deadly side effect of weather magic that can cause serious illness. Practicing without this robe is extremely dangerous and is not recommended. The subtle black piping on here is a telltale sign that this robe belongs to a senior practitioner of weather magic. Lastly, the outer robe, the Robe of Divine Thunder. This is the beating heart of the entire outfit. It is unlike any other Taoist robe in existence, and words always fall short when explaining it. It is the pinnacle of Taoist power, as it allows the practitioner to tap into the most potent Shen possible. When all of these pieces come together, they create an invisible force field of qi around the sorcerer. This has a direct effect on the practitioner's aura, or what the Taoists call an energy body. Every human being has an aura, which changes during certain emotional states. The aura can grow, shrink, and expand depending on one's emotional state. When wearing the complete set of the Weathermancer's robes, a person's energy body expands from several feet to several hundred feet, but most importantly, this outfit awakens an inner state known to Taoist Weathermancers as the Supreme Ultimate. This sacred body of light originates in the core of the magician's body, right under the heart, and extends outward. It takes the form of a dazzling silver-colored illumination. It radiates its glow in all directions while subtly vibrating the internal organs of the magician. This gentle vibration awakens the 12 meridians inside of the body, causing the channels to open up and flow with a healthy kind of qi called Tian qi. It is a unique kind of qi that only Weathermancers have access to. It begins to flow when the outfit is worn and only stops when it is taken off again. As it flows, it allows the practitioner to internalize different aspects of the weather, to absorb the celestial powers of thunder and store them into various organs throughout the body and keep them there until they are needed in the future. An incantation usually activates them. The state of the Supreme Ultimate can only be achieved when the robe is worn. One example of this state would be the skill of remote viewing. As an experienced weathermancer, I know the challenge of long-distance weather manipulation. It carries serious risks. When I wear the Robe of Divine Thunder, I'm able to use Tian Qi energy for remote viewing, to see and sense the patterns of weather in faraway locations, to sense clouds, rain and storms, and have the ability to move them to other places. None of this is safe to do without the proper robes. Within the traditions of Taoist weather magic, a magician's robe is measured by the length of the sleeves. These very long sleeves reveal that this robe belongs to a Grand Senior Master, the highest rank within the tradition. Only those who have mastered the inner workings of weathermancy may wear robes with such long sleeves. The long sleeves are also said to resemble a phoenix just before it takes flight, and deities are attracted to this. The longer the sleeves, the more deities that reside within the robe. It is said that the Robe of Divine Thunder contains 10,000 spirits, gods, immortals, and elementals, some named but many unnamed. Many are unknown entities not even recorded in the Taoist text. But perhaps the most important aspect of this robe, and its biggest kept secret, is the creature right here. This sacred and mighty creature is called the Concealing Bird. This bird is a weathermancer's greatest ally. It is the single most powerful symbol in all of Taoist weather magic. I can't stress enough how important and essential this bird is. Just like how the Northern Dipper is central to all of Taoist magic, the concealing bird is the be-all and end-all of Taoist weathermancy. Every single spell originates from the bird. It has the power to call forth the wind and rain, create snowstorms, end drought, prevent earthquakes, summon tornadoes. Most Taoists are not even aware of its existence. The bird gets its name from the legendary Book of Magic, concealing method of 3 volumes, the most enigmatic of all Taoist texts. The first volume is Concealing Heaven, the second volume is Concealing Earth, and the final volume is Concealing Man. The mythology states that the 3 volumes were protected by a great creature, the concealing bird. It was the duty of the bird to keep the books from falling into the wrong hands. All spirits, ghosts, gods and immortals are obedient to the concealing bird, which means when the bird is embroidered on a robe, all spirits and deities will be obedient to the magician without question. Even prudent and monstrous gods like Lei Gong, the god of thunder, will submit to the magician's will. When an ordinary man dresses in such robes, he ceases to become normal and instead transforms into a weathermancer who has the spiritual support of the concealing bird, but only if the bird so chooses. The bird is very selective. It only works with those who have respect and reverence towards the practice of weather magic. It can reach out to those who walk a more natural path, but it will not work with anyone who does not have a mature and sensible approach to weathermancy. In the short period of time that these robes have been in my possession, I have experienced strange and unusual things that cannot be really explained fully. From the moment that I unboxed them, I could hear faint whispering. It sounded like someone was in the room whispering to me, although I couldn't make out what was being said. I feel the concealing bird is talking to me. The very first time I tried them on, I could feel a sensation of electricity traveling up both of my arms going into the neck area, almost like a buzzing type sensation. The very first night after the robes arrived, I went to bed and the whispering returned, and my dreams became incredibly peculiar. I dreamt I was in the astral plane wearing the robes and practicing weather magic on different planets. I actually dreamt I was influencing the weather on Jupiter. It has been known that the concealing bird can induce hallucinations in people who are in close proximity to it, even more so with the person who wears it. I believe these hallucinations are divine messages from the bird's realm. It is a realm only accessible to Taoist weather magicians. One of the biggest kept secrets, which I'm about to reveal to you, is known by very few people. I would say less than 100 people in the world know about this. When the Robe of Divine Thunder is all together, when it is worn and used as a complete set with the other pieces, it ceases to become a talisman or simply a robe, and it actually becomes a deity within its own right. The concealing bird actually becomes alive like any other god, and there are instances where weathermancers will drop to their knees and worship the robe and even ask it for guidance in the same way as you would an oracle. So the robe is an entity that can be communed with, but it only tends to reach out to weathermancers, at least from my experience. One of the reasons why a weathermancer wears black and white robes, or sometimes black and grey, is due to the fact that black absorbs chi, whilst white reflects it. The practitioner should always wear a black outer robe and a white or grey underrobe to create the effect of energy bouncing back. The white robe will feed the black robe. It creates a system where the two colours rely on each other, much like yin and yang. The majority of Taoist weather magicians are grey arts practitioners. Black and white creates grey. The silver-grey colour of the bird represents the rather obscure middle path. Taoists understand that weathermancy is neither good or evil. It has the potential to be used and abused. All respectable weathermancers try to do the right thing, but they have free will to do anything they desire. Therefore, this middle path may not help anyone, but it certainly does not harm anyone either. I consider myself a grey art sorcerer. I have the potential to do good or bad if I so choose. That does not mean I can escape the consequences of my actions, far from it. My judgment keeps me on the right path, but I retains true spiritual freedom. The concealing bird is the final judge of one's actions. It watches over every weathermancer. Another secret of the Robe of Divine Thunder is this. If for some reason the weathermancer needs to leave the sacred ground, the outdoor altar, for a break, which does happen, typically this results in failure of the spell. As soon as the weathermancer leaves the magic circle, the magic itself begins to dissipate. Before you leave, you can solve this problem by taking off the Robe of Divine Thunder and placing it on the end of the peachwood sword, on the handle, or on the banister of the altar, and the robe will act as a substitute for the practitioner, so the magic can continue to work even when you aren't physically present.